And I kind of think from a personal perspective, it's caused me to really like audit my own heart around what I post and why I post on social media. Like our obsession with cultivating an image or a perception of our life is something that I think is applicable to.
Yeah.
I frustrate a lot of people because I kind of live in this middle. Why do you care about appearance so much? Or why do you care about curating your image online? It's just interesting how there's so many of these guys and girls that seemingly spend a lot of time on curating a really great image. What pastors and preachers are called to, as like outlined in the Bible, then yeah, you should. But yeah, there's clearly differences of opinion about what a pastor or preacher is called to.
You seen these Lego sets like this?
Dang.
I know.
Sesame Street.
Ben, I'm going to read your bio because I really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
So, Ben Kirby is the creator of the viral social media sensation Preachers and Sneakers, where he caused an uproar after showing the values of what clothing preachers were wearing on stage across the globe. Along with growing from 0 to hundreds of thousands of followers in just a few weeks, his work has been featured in the New York Times, the New Yorker, the Wall Street Journal, BuzzFeed, Fox News, Complex, and many more. He also hosts a popular podcast with the ultra-creative name, the Preachers and Sneakers Podcast. His background is unconventional for this type of movement. Here's where it gets even more interesting. He served as a Marine Corps logistics officer, serving tours in Eastern Europe, across Romania, Kosovo, Bosnia, Italy, and Spain, leading hundreds of Marines and sailors to protect the U.S. and its allies. After his time in the Marines, Ben served as vice president of operations for a tech-enabled services firm, where he not only served in a leadership role, but he also helped manage a multi-million-dollar operation. He holds his BSBA in marketing management from the University of Arkansas and his MBA in strategy and entrepreneurship from the Cox School of Business at Southern Methodist University. He now works full-time as a business owner, podcaster, and author in Texas, where he lives with his wife, Stacy, their son, Davis, and their 2 Labrador retrievers, both with francophilic spellings here, Gumbo and Roo. Gumbo, all right, well, I like it. I like what you're doing there. When not making Christians feel uncomfortable, Ben spends his time fly fishing, playing drums, flipping sneakers, writing comedy, eating all the foods, smoking exquisite meats, trying different libations responsibly, and looking for new entrepreneurial endeavors. I thought that was really cool, so I wanted everybody to know all that stuff.
Thank you.
Yeah, so this started as a joke, right? I mean, and I know you've been interviewed about this 1,000 times. I hope you're not too tired of talking about it, but it was a joke at the beginning.
Yeah, I mean, it was an offhanded comment or two I was making about a YouTube video that I happened to watch, and I had a couple hundred followers on my personal Instagram account, and I was encouraged to continue to post about some of the things I was commenting around the value of some of these guys' sneakers. And in a few weeks, it grew exponentially without really changing anything. For people that don't know, all I started doing was taking a pastor or preacher's Instagram post and juxtaposing the market value of their clothing right next to their photo, and just putting those two things next to each other communicated a lot and it was interpreted a lot of different ways.
Yes.
And unbeknownst to me, there was a lot brewing underneath the sneakers, and I was caught in the middle of it. And that was about 4 years ago, and now it's turned into a lot of different things. But yeah, not tired of talking about it. It's a big part of my life, or has been a big part of my life, and it's just a crazy time.
So then, like, you're taking stuff they are putting out there publicly, you're connecting it to the cost of the thing that they wanted seen. Why would that be a problem for any particular pastor? Honestly,
it's a fair question. It does bring up the question, like, are you responsible for the response to what people say or comment or think about what you post? I mean, what upsets them, I think, is people roasting them whether it looks good or not, or whether they could have donated that money to the poor or something. The whole church and money and pastors getting donations thing evokes a lot of different emotions and responses with many different groups. And so,
do you feel responsible for people's comments? Do you feel a little bit, even if you shouldn't? Mm-hmm. Do you?
Yeah, I've struggled with it over the years, because people do show up and project their own church hurts or their own biases towards Christianity or a certain preacher or pastor, and people have, these pastors have messaged me, kind of telling me the hurtful things people have messaged them or commented about them, and I've at first I was really sensitive to it because I want to get along with everybody. I want to be friends with everyone. I like I like getting people's approval. I'm not really the stir the pot type usually. But it ended up being very contentious. And what I came to was like, look, you're posting on a public forum. You're an adult. You can put your account on private. If you put something out there in the public sphere, everyone has the right, whether it's fair or not,
right,
or justified or not, to comment, post, recreate in the like public use domain. And I just kind of had to get secure in the fact, like, look, I am not being a legalist and drawing a hard line in the sand about what's right and what's incorrect. It's driving a lot of good conversations, and I've got to be secure in that because I can't carry everyone's disagreements or distaste with what I do or don't do. But it's people. I'm still insecure about certain parts of it, and people will bring those up sometimes, and that can ruin a day. And so I'm limiting the amount of time I spend on the internet for that very reason.
Well, I appreciate you being really honest about that. I can totally identify with that because I don't want to rock anybody's world or anything. Right. But I do think overall, not just overall, I think it's been really, really good.
Thank you.
But
I felt like it called people to wrestle with some things that I think many Christians or followers of these guys and girls had never even questioned. Like, I thought they were just looking cool. I didn't even contend with the fact that they could have been using their platform to make millions of dollars instead of shepherding the souls of the people they were called to shepherd, or building a church platform in order to sell a book or sell a course or whatever. It just like created all these things that many had just taken at face value. And to me, that seems like a net positive. But yeah, of course, it's really hard for people to be nuanced on the internet and to not. People want to be black and white on the internet, and that's tough. And I frustrate a lot of people because I kind of live in this middle. Just because I've seen a lot of sides, a lot of different contexts, and that's frustrating because people want me to say, "Hey, this is the limit for what's appropriate and not," and I just can't do it. I know I'm not. Yeah.
I remember years ago. I still remember it, so it made a big impression on me. Tony Campolo, who I used to love when I was a kid, so inspired me. But he's like, "Do you think you can drive a BMW? Would Jesus drive in a BMW? Of course not." And I spouted that for a long time. Now, recently I owned a BMW, and I had to sort of...
Fine German engineering.
It is, and I got it used. And people didn't know it cost less than a lot of Hyundais. It was like $12,000 when I bought it. But I actually was like, that's just it. The hard and fast line thing, to me, isn't the issue. You know what you have pointed out, maybe unintended, that I think needs to get talked more about? It's not the cost of the stuff. It's the apparent neediness from people who should be spiritual leaders that we want to be mature. Like, we need some people in this culture to be mature and at peace. But if it looks like you're going out of your way, like as a 60-year-old dude, to try to look super cool, it just comes across as bleedingly needy, and that's really just disappointing.
Mm-hmm. It's like, why do you care about appearance so much? Or why do you care about curating your image online? It's just interesting how there's so many of these guys and girls that seemingly spend a lot of time on curating a really great image, appearing really well-spoken, and having... Like, you got videographers following you around. You got people taking photos of you before and after service. It's just kind of like, all right, dude, like, maybe this is fine, but it seems like you care about a lot of stuff that doesn't matter and seems a little vain.
Which is, again, that is human, right? We have humans, all sorts of problems. Okay, but you're on stage and you're there should be a discipleship thing where you're a different person and not looking... Like if you believe
what pastors and preachers are called to, as like outlined in the Bible, then yeah, you should. But
that seems
clearly,
like the deepest.
Yeah, there's clearly differences of opinion about what a pastor or preacher is called to.
Yeah. Okay. So that's the other thing too. I don't think people honestly know what pastor generally means anymore. Like they have no clue what that word is. They associate it with this stuff.
Yeah, it's more just like, hey, this is a preacher who is basically the owner or CEO of this church / brand. It's not, oh, this person actually is called to lead us spiritually and to kind of have authority over. Yeah, knows us. Like that's some of the rub around the large church model, which we go to a very large church here in Dallas, and so I'm not anti-large church. It just takes an additional level of commitment to the people that go to that church in order to know them and serve them, instead of just be like, hey, let's get them in the door and hope for the best.
Yeah. So slightly change the subject. Are you so good with like identifying clothes? That blew me away too. Forget the theological stuff. I never noticed shoes like that because I just wasn't aware of that scene. Mm-hmm. But you also noticed, like, check out that belt, check out that jacket. I mean, Can you look at my shirt right now and make kind of a ballpark?
No, I can't. Not on your shirt. I mean, that's how easy it is to never end up on my page. Is like you don't even have to try that hard if you want to avoid whatever comes from getting posted about on my account. But I was really good at it for the first probably 3 years, and then we had our son, and we just had our second child about a month ago. And
congrats!
So I need to update my bio. Thank you. And so I have very little time to kind of stay on sneaker Twitter and all that to stay up to date. But I'm still dangerous when it comes to identifying stuff, because logos are logos, and you can spot them from a mile away if you know what they are.
Well, and apparently, like, it means something not just to you, but to the people on stage, which is what you're pointing out so much. So, what about this? Do you get this kind of criticism? And I'm guessing you do. I think I was follower number 13,000 or something. I felt really good about myself. I'm sure you get that a lot too. The criticism of how dare you criticize the church? Like, Jesus would never, ever, ever say anything negative about the church. Is that the nature of some of the stuff you hear?
Yeah, it's varying degrees of, like, if people will DM me or comment, if they're really big fans of a certain person that I post about, they'll essentially they'll equate my contribution to the kingdom versus their contribution to the kingdom in a day versus mine in a whole lifetime, that kind of thing, which it's kind of sad and also very telling. Like, all I have to do is post a picture about your guy, and it reveals this massive idol that you have that's got you so angry. Like, why are you so angry that I'm not even saying this guy's a heretic. I'm saying this guy's shoes are worth $500, period.
Right.
And there's basically no arguing that the shoes are or are not worth that. And so it's a lot of that. And then, people will, a lot less now just because I've been around for a while. But at first, a lot of it was like, this is divisive. You're causing people to lose their faith. You're going to have to account for the souls that you lost because of this account. You're going to have to, you're breaking down the church instead of building it up. All that kind of stuff, which is kind of a cop-out of wanting to contend with the real issue that they're angry. And I understand why people are frustrated or feel like I'm a troll or something. And I've come to peace with my place in all of this. But I had tons of people that have seething at my implication, or what's the word? My even hinting that this person may have an expensive pair of shoes. Like, it's
well,
it's pretty tough.
I'm here to tell you will have to account for all those souls, but overall, I think it's
which I'm prepared for. I think if you lost your faith because of my account, it was a faith based on my account is kind of a weak faith.
It was very, very tenuous faith at that point. But I don't even buy we talk about this sometimes on the air, but like when people are like, Jesus would never criticize the church, I'm like, you ever read Revelation? I mean, he specifically goes to, like, sends letters to specific churches and rips.
Or like the flipping the tables in. I mean, it's a little different, but I think he was very vocal about making a mockery of his house. Now, people have kind of used that against me, saying like, my God will not be mocked. And I'm like, dude, I'm not mocking God. I'm mocking the people that are making a mockery of the Christian faith, which is actually pretty important, and we're kind of making it into a social club.
I don't even know that you're doing that.
Yeah,
and that's one of the things. Honestly, like I think about all this stuff all the time because I think I'm like you, and trying to be judicious about things and graceful towards people. But the way your tone on that thing has always been really impressive to me. You always keep it in a humorous space, and you set the tone for that space in that sense. Even if some people want to get on and be jerks, you're not being a troll.
Right.
I've never heard you say anything negative about anybody.
Yeah,
like
and it's been exhausting. I mean, it's taken extra effort to not do that because there have been plenty of times where I've had weak moments and wanted to just like rip people that were treating me unfairly or any number of things.
Of course,
but trying to like be above reproach. Like I haven't handled the account perfectly. I had plenty of times where I kind of roasted people that maybe I could have paused or could have, I don't know, like there's plenty of things I look back on and probably would have done differently. But for the majority of the time, I've taken pride in not just being like, hey, let me throw the grenade and step back and watch the world burn. It's been more like, all right, this is the facts that I know, and I, for some reason, was able to think up a funny caption. Here's the humor of it, and here's also something to think about. And so far, it seemed to have been a net positive, even if some people were insulted or hurt.
You were doing this anonymously for a while, right? Am I remembering that correctly? Mm-hmm. What made you decide you might as well just own it?
Yeah, I mean, it's taken several kind of. It's had different seasons. At the beginning, it was such a wild, viral thing that I didn't know what was going to come from it. Like, my wife was working at our church at the time. I didn't know what I was doing, or like I had pastors getting extremely upset that were just like these figures that seemed otherworldly that were finally like calling me and DMing me. And I was like, okay, this has gotten very real. Yeah. Whether I like it or not. And so out of kind of just like, all right, let me just pause and see what's going to happen. That's what the anonymous thing originally was. And then people were like interested, like, hey, this guy's causing this big stir and nobody even knows who he is. And so I kind of kept that going because it was cool and it was kind of interesting. And then eventually I was like, all right, this is exhausting to keep this up, to have fake email addresses and phone numbers and trying to get your friends to not tell their friends who you are and what you're doing. And so kind of in connection with the release of the book, I had this kind of coming out, which was good. And it also allowed me to do things like this where I could have my name and face assigned to be more part of these conversations, even though like I have much less time for it now that I'm a parent. Like I'm spending a lot less time on the internet. Yeah. But yeah, so it had utility in that I was just tired of doing it just seemed like not worth it. Like it was cool for a time. I think we were wise in not just jumping all in, saying, hey, this is me doing this thing. Please come harass my wife and vandalize my house, that kind of thing. Like I was kind of concerned about that at first. And now that things have chilled out, it's all good.
Yeah, that's good. So writing the book and doing this whole project, like anytime you sit down to write a book, it's like, you're not an expert, but it's an extended time of thinking about something really deeply that most people don't have time to think about. So over the course of this, writing the book, the whole project with the Instagram, what has crystallized, what opinions have crystallized about celebrity and pastoring?
Yeah. You're right. I've spent more time than I really have wanted to thinking and studying about this kind of thing. I learned from a lot of people smarter than me about, like Kate Bowler, who wrote a whole book about the prosperity gospel, like really digging into the origins of this and why this is such a popular movement and why the seeker-sensitive thing is still so popular. Some of the things I've taken away is that, like, if you believe what the Bible says and you think eternity is on the line, you should take your faith more serious than going to a cool church because the music is good and the speaker is charismatic and you feel good being there and leaving out there waiting to go the next weekend. Like, if you're looking for an experience that is just so thin in the context of eternity. And then also, I lost my train of thought. You should reduce some, like if you, research what, and not a lot of people are going to do this, but if you actually want to criticize and critique what a pastor or preacher does, it's very helpful to understand what that role is actually called to. And you should call your pastors and preachers to that standard, even if it feels unfair. But biblically, they are called to a different standard, and not to absolve us as lay people from a standard, but they are called to an additional standard, which has eternal implications. And then I kind of think from a personal perspective, it's caused me to really like audit my own heart around what I post and why I post on social media. Like our obsession with cultivating an image or a perception of our life is something that I think is applicable to everyone. Saying like, hey, before you post a picture or whatever about how awesome your life is, consider the heart behind why you're posting that. Like, are you proud just of an accomplishment you had and you want other people to share that with you? Or do you want people to basically envy your life and think you're awesome? And I'm guilty of doing this plenty of times. And so that's something that has crystallized for me. And more like tactically, I do think that today's pastors and preachers care a lot about a lot of stuff that doesn't matter in the scheme of like shepherding people's souls, spreading the gospel, helping the less fortunate, equipping those to go out into the world to further the kingdom. I think, or I know there's a very like self-licking ice cream cone of a system right now where these guys are all buddies with each other. Yeah. So they spend their pastor time writing a book, getting a book deal, which I don't have an issue with the book deal. I got a book deal. But the fact that you're supported by donations from people that are selflessly donating to like further the kingdom, you're spending pastor time to either engage a ghostwriter or write your own book, and now you're going to your buddies' churches to preach about your book, sell your book, you become a New York Times best-selling author, you go to their conferences and get $50K to speak each time, and you rinse and repeat, and all these guys do this. And you saw it in the Hillsong documentary, and you're probably going to see it in some other documentaries. Like, it's just shocking to me that more of these pastors aren't just like scared for their life around the games that they're playing. Like a husband and wife at the top of a massive church with a huge budget with no oversight or like reporting requirements is just like, I see those people and in my heart, I'm just like, good luck, dude. Good luck. Good luck with the money and the power and the attention and the resources. I'm sure you'll do fine with it this time. No one else has screwed this up. And so like that's been the biggest thing to me is like I am not surprised when another pastor embezzles money or sleeps around or whatever. And I just hope that the guys at the highest level get the accountability and oversight that they need.
Yeah, I don't think that job, the way we fashioned it, is healthy for anybody. So we should eliminate it. Because it's not actually pastor. You have a gift of pastoring. That's shepherding people off stage. Right. So I don't know what this is, but overall, there's a few people I think are doing great with it. That, you know, like, good luck, but it shouldn't exist. It disempowers so many people. But I wanted to ask you. You mentioned the documentary. I saw you on that. That's what reminded me. I'm like, oh, I meant to talk to him sometime. On the Hillsong documentary. How did that go? Did you like it? How it was edited? Like, fair to you?
Yeah, I got to know the producer there pretty well, and going into it understood that it was probably going to be a lot of church hurt and a lot of kind of criticisms against just like church culture when it comes to volunteering and donations and that kind of thing, which if anybody's grown up going to church, that's just part of going to church is like volunteer work. But in terms of my contribution, I was surprised at how much they kept in of my interview, just because the first episode they gave me a lot of airtime, and they could have probably edited it to where I was more incendiary, but I felt like they were fair. I don't know. I left there being pretty content with what they kept in, where they allowed me to not be like, hey, Hillsong did this to me and hurt me and screw them. And instead, they allowed me to be like, hey, this is why people are upset. And this is why Hillsong was able to have so much influence because of these different cultural factors. Yeah. So it was a good experience, and I think a lot of people have got something out of it. Plenty of critiques, and people I think didn't enjoy the whole part or the whole thing, but I was grateful.
I haven't finished it yet, so maybe, I don't know if it goes off the rails or whatever, but I did watch that first episode, and maybe the second, and I did appreciate the role that they had you play, which is, again, and this is the role that you actually are. You're one of us.
Yeah.
So it's one thing to come lobbing in grenades and mocking people, but you're not mocking people, and you're doing it as someone who's like, I go to a big church, like I'm a believer.
Right.
And
the church hasn't hurt me.
Yeah, and I appreciated them having you in that, representing that voice of like, hello, there are reasonable people in this universe.
Me too. Yeah, I was grateful for that too, because I tried, because they didn't tell me what they were going to ask me, and we just sat in LA for like 5 hours just chatting about stuff. And so I was really grateful that they kept in what they did, and felt like I was able to add a kind of a more balanced approach.
Well, man, congrats on your new kid, and thanks for making time. I had one thing I think is going to be the next hot thing. Like, I missed this whole sneakers deal, like, or fashion. But check this out. So our neighbor gave us this. Hang on a second. I'll be right back.
All right.
Yeah, this is going to be the new thing to trade and deal. You seen these Lego sets like this?
Dang.
I know.
Sesame Street.
It's so detailed, man.
That's awesome.
I went online. It's $200.
Retail?
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
But it's got like little. There's Bert and Ernie's room.
Yeah.
Bert and Bernie. And then,
there's all these subcultures that have this pretty strong nostalgia market. That's pretty sweet.
Yeah, thanks. I really just wanted to show it off, but I thought I would tie it in.
Everyone's got their thing. Yeah, that's a great tie-in.
Yeah, I may get in a deal in those things. So, well, man, thank you so much. Pleasure meeting you. If you're ever in Florida and you want to go golfing with somebody, I'll set you up with somebody else, and then we can hang out afterward.
That's awesome, Brant. Well, thanks for the time. Great to meet you finally.